Hello. It has been a really long time since I recorded a new introduction video for my Patreon, like literally a couple of years. So here I am on a Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. And a lot has happened in the last couple of years. A lot has happened in the last couple of weeks. A lot has happened in the last couple of months. And I'm back. I'm back on Patreon specifically to document one of the projects that I'm super turned on about and I think is super important in this day and age. As with all my projects, this one's an experiment. What's it called? It's called the Hyperlocal Food Security Web Weaving Project Experiment. It started a couple of weeks ago, the end of March, I think it was. Uh, and how I remember it, this is not the first experiment of its kind that I've ever done, but it's the first time I've done this kind of thing in a long time. As many of you know, I studied permaculture starting in the 1990s, 1991, and became very passionate about growing food, about creating sustainable systems. Mm, One of the inspirations was my low income level. I was a single mother of a little boy and soon became the single mother of two little boys by two different dads without income coming from either of them. Mm, I wanted to stay home with my kids. I didn't have kids, so to hand them over to someone else to raise. And so I became really passionate about permaculture. I didn't study it formally, not that you could really ever study permaculture formally until 2014 or 15. And by then I was pretty sad about the different permaculture projects that I was privy to, that I'd participated in, that I'd heard about, just how many of them really got kind of taken over by capitalism and became just more green versions of capitalism, which I didn't think was permaculture, didn't think it was sustainable, or especially didn't think it was regenerative. So I shifted my focus to inner permaculture and social permaculture, and the people part. And my my observations went something like, when people try to collaborate to create something truly permanent culture, mm, it's their inner relating, the people's feelings and thoughts and patterns and habits, and especially their reactivity, that often then contribute to the downward spiral in the relating and collaborating that makes the people either leave or breaks the project up or gets people numbed out and just following the same old patterns of colonial capitalist hierarchical patriarchal consumer culture, just greener. So I set out to learn something else. And a big part of that learning began in 2015 when I set up the Awakening House temporary permaculture ashram. It was always designed to be uh, a temporary project wherein I and anyone else who joined learned how to do the people part while handling the physical stuff, whatever we wanted to do on the physical permaculture plane. Great. It was an urban project. We had a yard. There was food growing kind of to one degree or another the whole time. But a lot of more social experiments, a lot of relational experiments, a lot about healing, a lot about starting to understand how a human being goes from being reactive to coming down to a normal, a like baseline, and how that baseline could become even more, ever more spacious. Uh, a person could become ever more ever less reactive, ever more tapped into what was really going on. And after 5 years, that project crashed and burned. That's when COVID started. And then the year from when COVID started until the next spring, so 2020, March, April 2022 is when the project crashed. And then a new thing began to grow. When I basically, as far as I can tell what happened, I made a big plea to the universe towards the end of 2019 that I would find the people who were way ahead of me when it came to holding space, when it came to inner permaculture, when it came to creating non-hierarchical group dynamics, and instead more circular, more toroidal shaped group dynamics. And then as COVID was starting and the lockdowns were starting, I gained access to the people at the core of a game world called possibility management. Thus began 6 years of immersed, intensive, every day, all day study and practice, and using the tools, the distinctions, the thought maps, the processes, the world of possibilitators to clear out a whole bunch of old baggage from inside of me, to upgrade my thoughtware, what I think with, and to experiment with new processes and maps. And in March, this past March of 2026, February and March, I went to a 7-day intensive training space for women who are committed to something radically different happening on planet Earth. This was a space delivered by possibility management trainers. And during that time, I slowly but surely, the pieces fell into place whereby I started to relate to myself as having graduated. Somewhere in there, I graduated from possibility management. Now, of course, when you graduate from a field of intensive study and practice, that doesn't mean you stop. You stop being you. But what it did mean is that my orientation changed from orienting into possibility management and doing a lot of my research and projects with other possibilitators. And somehow I turned around and I started orienting more to the in-person world that I found myself in, that I find myself in, and using the distinctions, tools, maps, processes that I've been studying and learning to use for the last 6 years, and applying them in new ways. So during the last month or so since that graduation kind of epiphany happened, I've been more kind of in my own project, more in my own set of projects that include experimenting with delivering the particular practices and theory behind the practices that I I think have been the most effective, practical, consequential of the many I did, that I would say empowered me to regenerate my own nervous system. Not all the way, perhaps. I'm sure there's still more to go. And I don't have scientific data that proves that my nervous system has been regenerated to any degree, but I do have really clear results that I can point to, where that 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 speak to the difference in me between 6 years ago, Nicole, and today, Nicole, between certainly 10 years ago, Nicole, and today, Nicole. And these last 6 years, I think, have been the most transformational years of my life. And I've been through some massive experiences that had initiatory effect on me. I was initiated into motherhood 4 times in different circumstances. I was initiated when my father died. I, you know, I've, I've had a lot of life experiences that have not been comfortable, that have not been easy. And all along the way, I opted to eventually return to what I would call edge work. So, coming to the edge of the modern culture, industrial complex system of systems, and looking and longing to create and be part of creating and to find myself existing in a very different culture. A culture, like at the heart of it, a culture where war is obsolete. The wars that we have inside between parts of ourselves, the wars we have between each other, including just outbursts and defensiveness and offensiveness and maybe stalemates and compromising or breaking up or running away or pleasing so that I can get what I want, into radically intimate and workable collaborative communication and creation. So there's this project that I'm calling the Human Nervous System Regeneration Project, where I will keep experimenting. I will keep sharing with others how I've done it and what I'm doing and invite them to join me. So we'll be an experiment field. We'll grow this field of conscious feelings work is most of what in possibility management is called conscious feelings work. I would say I'm calling it human nervous system regeneration work. And and that goes like hand in hand with uh, another project, which is a hyper local food. Did I already say this? Talked about it so much in the last weeks. Hyper local food security net weaving project. So this is the very practical kind of, okay, given the rising price of gas, given how when fuel costs rise, the cost of everything in the system rises, and that means that for folk like me, maybe for folk like you, the availability of food starts to become, or the accessibility to food, the buying power for food becomes more of a stretch. And so I've kind of created a multi-pronged approach to empowering individuals, households, neighbors, and family groups to buy and store non-perishable foods while also building more and more hyper locally sourced, especially fresh food. So it's about your pantry, it is about your garden, it's about your kitchen cupboards, it's about your fridge, it's about the power sources that keep your food from spoiling, that cook it, that preserve it, and simplifying, so that any given household can really relax about food, no matter what happens to the price of gas, no matter what happens to the transportation system, no matter what happens to the political economic system, and no matter what happens in the immediate neighborhood. People are connected, well fed, have strong nervous systems, more resilient nervous systems, hopefully because they engage in both sides of this project, and are ever more known to each other and in trust with each other. So, so this is what I'll be documenting in this new era of Patreon. I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and um, get this out to you, and then start documenting, I guess, both these projects. Certainly the food one, because it's the one it's easy to take pictures of. Okay. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. I want to be a food security coach globally. I'm available by Zoom, but mostly in person here on the Sunshine Coast of BC. Mm. And I'm also doing the nervous system regeneration work globally over Zoom and in person on the Sunshine Coast of BC. I've got a few other little projects, and I'll post kind of probably just posters and write ups about those as time goes by. I have a new website in the making. Yay! Because I met an angel. Mm, I have a new man in my life. I don't know if I've talked about. Oh, I have. I have. I remember talking about the writing about that. Mm, I honestly hope that your lives are either already as fun and delicious and nourishing for you as mine is for me, and that through your patronage, your attention, your um, engaging with me here, that that it will become ever more the case that you are ever more alive, ever more enthusiastic about your life, in ever more connected collaboration with the people you love and care about, hopefully in person more and more and more. Amen.